It is 1781 during the Revolutionary War where the Americans are battling for their freedom against the British. Ichabod Crane, a revolutionary soldier on the battlefield, is cornered behind a tree. He heads off to search for his target only to be approached by a British soldier on horseback. Ichabod shoots the soldier off his horse, but it has no effect. The soldier quickly recovers and fights back, revealing a branded arrow mark on the back of his hand. He cuts through Ichabod's chest using his broadaxe and gets ready to strike the final blow. But, moments before Ichabod dies, he decapitates the British soldier with his sword. More than 2 centuries later, fading voices of a man and woman can be heard as Ichabod wakes up in a cave. He gasps out of a grave and strangely, he seems to be in excellent health. Ichabod soon stumbles onto a trigger that reveals an exit from the cave. He then makes his way out to a road where he nearly gets hit by a truck. Since he has no idea where he is or what is happening around him, Ichabod flees to the nearby town of Sleepy Hollow. That same night, 2 police officers, Corbin and Abby, enjoy a meal at a diner. It's revealed that Abby plans to leave her job and transfer to the FBI Academy, but Corbin thinks she is running away from something, possibly some traumatic memory. When the 2 leave the diner, they are instructed to investigate a nearby stable where something is scaring the horses. The duo quickly reach the location and split up to investigate. However, when Abby tries to contact the owner of the stable, she gets no answer. She starts to look around the property only to stumble across the owner's truck, a rifle on the ground, and his decapitated corpse. Abby immediately notifies her partner who has run into a horrifying problem in the stables. A headless horseman reveals itself from the shadows, and Corbin immediately begins to shoot at it. Abby hears several bullets being fired and runs towards the stable. Unfortunately, it is too late as the horseman rides out, and Abby is left with Corbin's decapitated body. Back in the city's main square, another police officer, Andy, gets the backup call regarding the unrest in the stables. He gears up to head to the spot but runs into Ichabod on the way. Andy immediately arrests the shabby-looking man who seems to be lost and confused. A few hours later at the police station, Abby clearly mentions that she didn't see Ichabod anywhere near the stable. She describes the murderer as a man with a red coat who had some kind of branding on his hand. Upon hearing this, Ichabod immediately gets alert and starts questioning Abby. He also adds other similar descriptions about the suspect, and even confesses to cutting off the horseman's head. After a quick polygraph interrogation, everyone except Abby concludes that Ichabod must be mentally unstable. The station's captain, Captain Frank, orders that the suspect should be taken to a mental institution. Abby somehow persuades the captain into allowing her to be the one to transport Ichabod. However, as soon as she comes out of the station, Abby tells Ichabod that she partially believes his story. She tells him to take her to the cave in which he awoke. The duo reach the spot quickly, and while Abby investigates the area, Ichabod stumbles across a Bible. It is the same Bible that was buried with him, and inside, the Book of Revelations is marked for some reason. Ichabod reads the passage and realizes that the horseman is the horseman of death foretold in the Bible. He then tells Abby that he was specifically tasked by George Washington to target and kill the Headless Horseman during the Revolutionary War. Later that night, the town's reverend encounters the horseman outside the church. He fights for his life, but the horseman ultimately beheads him. Abby, who is on her way to the mental institution along with Ichabod, is called to the murder scene. She quickly reaches the church and leaves the suspect back in the car. However, Ichabod notices a hawk on the hood of the car and follows the bird to a nearby graveyard. Captain Frank notices him and is angered by Abby's disobedience. He threatens to suspend her and she is forced to go after the suspect once more. Abby follows Ichabod to the graveyard, where the latter discovers his wife's tombstone. Rather curiously, the epitaph states that she was burnt for witchcraft. Eventually, Ichabod is taken to a mental institution, and Abby begins to show sympathy towards him. She reveals a traumatic event from her past when she and her sister Jennifer encountered an evil force in the woods. The shock caused them to black out, and they were later found by the side of a nearby road. That night, Abby sneaks into Corbin's office and finds a key hidden behind a picture. She uses the key and stumbles across an archive of files along with a voice recorder. In the tape, Corbin talks about several unsolved murders in Sleepy Hollow that seem to be connected to the Book of Revelations. Back at the mental institution, Ichabod is visited by his wife Katrina in his dreams. She tells him that it is his destiny to be the first witness, and also reveals that she is actually trapped in another world. Katrina says that the horseman's skull is actually hidden in her grave. If he finds it, he will regain full power, and the 4 horsemen of doom will be summoned. Just as Ichabod wakes up from his dream, Abby barges into the room and takes him away. They hurriedly get into her car, where Abby reveals what she found in Corbin's office. Ichabod also tells her about the horseman's skull. Upon hearing this, Abby calls Andy for backup and tells him to arrive at the local church march along with backup. In the meantime, Andy is on his way back from his shift while talking to Abby. He does reach his home but finds an unexpected guest waiting for him, the Headless Horseman. In a shocking twist, Andy ends up betraying Abby and tells the Horseman everything about her plan. Elsewhere in the graveyard of the church, Abby and Ichabod dig up the skull. They are about to get their hands on it when unfortunately, the Horseman arrives. Ichabod hides in the grave and Abby is forced to flee as the Horseman begins to shoot indiscriminately. Just as he stands over Ichabod and prepares to kill him, Abby shoots back, which causes the Horseman to falter. Right then, Andy pulls up and knocks out the unsuspecting Abby. He puts her in the back of his car, but his lust gets the better of him. Andy begins to caress her face and she takes this opportunity to bite his thumb. Abby then snatches his gun and forces the traitor to handcuff himself to the car. With this obstacle out of the way, Abby runs to Ichabod's aid, who is getting whooped by the Horseman. Shortly afterwards, the backup finally arrives, but they are still no match for the Horseman. It is only when the sun rises that the Horseman rides away from the spot. Back at the police station, two officers confirm to Captain Frank what they witnessed. He now has no choice but to believe Abby and Ichabod about the whole thing. Once the captain is gone, Ichabod explains to Abby that she was destined to be the second witness. On the other hand, Andy, who is now imprisoned, gets yet another unexpected visitor, a demon. It twists Andy's head upside down before escaping into a mirror on the cell's wall. Seconds later, Abby and Ichabod arrive there, just in time to see a strange sight in the mirror, a blurry figure in the woods. Abby goes closer to examine it, but the figure in the mirror turns and shatters the glass. That night, Ichabod sees another nightmare in which he is being chased by the four horsemen of the apocalypse through a jungle. His wife, Katrina, pulls him into an underground tunnel and saves him for the time being. She warns him that an army of evil will make way for the arrival of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. She also adds that the first dark spirit will rise with the blood moon, and that dark spirit will be one of them. She instructs Ichabod to stop her before she murders someone once again. The next morning, Captain Frank tells Abby that the other officers who witnessed the shootout have recanted their statements about the horsemen. Even Andy's death looks completely different in the security footage. He appears to have ended his own life. Later on, Abby picks Ichabod from his room, and the duo head to Officer Corbin's funeral. On the way, they talk about a lot of things, including Ichabod's latest nightmare. They soon reach the funeral site, and Ichabod slips to the side to visit his wife's grave. There, he sees her epitaph about being burnt for witchcraft, and realizes that the warning Katrina gave him in his nightmare referenced a witch. Elsewhere, Andy rises from the dead with his head bent backwards. The same demon that eliminated him shows up and repairs his body. Andy then coughs up a necklace and is told by the demon to release someone. Later, in a cemetery, he puts the necklace on a gravestone, and as the moon comes out, it starts burning up. Soon, a witch rises up from the grave and Andy passes on the demon's message to her. It is revealed that this belongs to the evil coven that is helping the demons. To gain her physical body back, she will need to get her hands on the ashes of the descendants of the judges that sentenced her to death. Following this, Andy drives away in his cop car from the cemetery and a few minutes later pulls a man over. He makes sure the man's name is Jeremy Stephen Firth before driving away like nothing happened. The man then tries to leave, but his car won't start. Right then, the witch from the cemetery jumps onto his vehicle and sets the entire car on fire. The following morning, Abby and Ichabod get a call for a suspicious murder. When they reach the given spot, they find Jeremy Firth's burned body in his vehicle. Ichabod has an idea about who is responsible and shares a story with Abby. One night, his regiment was returning to camp near Albany when they found bodies everywhere with men turned to ash. The strange murders became more frequent, and a woman named Cyrilda of Abaddon was blamed. Washington also thought that the Redcoats made a deal with her coven. Back in the present, Abby tells Ichabod about Corbin's files, which mention two covens in Sleepy Hollow, one good, one evil. They go to search through Corbin's files, only to find that his office has been cleaned out. Thankfully, Ichabod knows a secret tunnel passageway from the police station to the building across the street where the files are kept. He remembers that the tunnel allowed them to resupply without being detected during the War of Independence. Going through the tunnel, they find an alcove piled high with witches' bones along with century-old gunpowder. They soon reach the other building and start going through Corbin's records. It turns out that the witch Cyrilda is Romani Greek and was a part of the evil coven. The good coven, the Sisterhood of the Radiant Heart, weakened Cyrilda so that she could be captured and killed. As she was being burnt, she cursed the judges that the ashes of their descendants would be hers. The magistrate who sentenced her had the last name Firth, just like the first victim. They also discover the magistrate had a son and daughter, and the daughter married into the Hemingtons family. Elsewhere, the witch visits the Hemingtons family household and steals the urn which contains the ashes of the family's last son. Abby and Ichabod also arrive at the house, but they realize that the witch has already left. Thankfully, Ichabod deduces that the witch is going back to the tunnel to get her bones. They rush back to the tunnels, but by the time they actually arrive, Cerilda has already resurrected. She confronts the two humans and reveals that it was Katrina who bound her power. The witch then gloats that Katrina is now sealed in a dimension between two worlds. In a stroke of genius, Ichabod throws a torch onto the gunpowder crates, and they explode beneath Cerilda. The witch is unable to stand the fire and gets blown into nothingness. Elsewhere, in a mental institution, Abby's sister Jenny is working out when she senses a demonic presence nearby. A few days later, Abby is woken up from a nightmare by her cell phone. She hurriedly picks up the call and is told to rush to a nearby building. It is revealed that a doctor named Mora is threatening to jump off a building, and she insists on speaking with Abby alone. When Abby reaches her, the doctor cryptically says that everything Abby's sister saw was real. The officer is confused, and as Mora turns around, Abby recognizes her as the psychiatrist from one of her nightmares. But before she can ask anything, the doctor jumps to her death. As dawn breaks, Abby returns to the station where she learns that Dr. Mora did a year of residency at the same hospital where Jenny was locked up. It is clear that the doctor knew Jenny showed no other signs of mental illness, and that she was probably telling the truth. Thus, Ichabod insists on speaking with Jenny, whom Abby hasn't spoken to in 5 years. Nonetheless, a few hours later, the duo arrive at the mental institution, but it soon becomes clear that Jenny doesn't want to see her sister at all. Thus, Ichabod goes into Jenny's cell and has a heart-to-heart conversation with her. He tells her everything from Dr. Mora's death to the fact that both he and her sister know that she is not crazy. Jenny, however, refuses to drop the grudge and tells him that it's too late to fight. Following this, Ichabod and Abby leave the hospital while having a conversation about what had happened to Abby and her sister in the woods. It is revealed that a rancher named Garrett Gillespie had found them unconscious near the highway, and he saw the demon too. At the precinct, Captain Frank gets a report of several shots being fired at the Gillespie ranch, and he immediately heads a response team. Abby and Crane also pull up to Gillespie's house, but it is already surrounded by patrol cars. It turns out Gillespie has taken his wife hostage and is demanding to speak to Abby. She immediately goes into the house and finds Gillespie on the floor of his kitchen, and just Dr. Mora, he too has white eyes. Suddenly, Gillespie sees the demon behind Abby and fires in the air. He warns her that the Sandman is coming for her the next time she falls asleep. Then, without an ounce of hesitation, he shoots himself and drops dead on the spot. Later on, Abby and Ichabod study the sheriff's files on sleep demons. They find one such demon, the Mohawk sleep demon, and Ichabod reveals that he has heard about it before. During the war, his Native American friends told him stories about a spirit called as Rokenhrantes. This spirit would come for you if you didn't do right by your neighbor. Ichabod then suggests that they visit a Mohawk shaman, and they quickly find one out, a used car salesman named Seamus Duncan. The shaman initially refuses to help, then changes his tone when he hears about the spirit. Thus, he takes them to a lodge away from town where he gives Abby a herbal tea. The shaman reveals that the tea will allow her to walk in the dream world and take on the demon, but warns her if she dies there, she will also die in reality. Ichabod immediately takes a sip of the tea himself and tells Abby he will accompany her. Then Duncan tells them they need scorpion venom to be able to control what they do in the spirit world. He ties them down to tables and puts scorpions on their bare stomachs to let them get stung. The duo soon fall asleep and wake up in a foggy forest, looking for each other. Unfortunately, Rokenhrantes finds Abby first and says that she hasn't always been just in her actions. Eventually, Rokenhrantes turns into the officer who had questioned Abby and her sister on the day they were found unconscious near the forest. Abby realizes she's been trapped in the demon's illusion and is about to lose. But thankfully, Abby confesses that she had seen a demon on that day. She bravely announces that she's not afraid anymore and won't desert her sister again. This is enough to shatter the illusion created by the Rokenhrantes. Once Abby and Ichabod emerge back into the real world, they are hit with yet another bad news. Jenny has escaped from the mental institution. It turns out that Jenny is far away in a bar, where the bartender Wendell hands the young lady her stuff from a safe. Elsewhere, a music teacher gets a phone call from a disguised voice telling him about item 37. It informs the man that she has escaped, and she knows where said item is. He's tasked with getting her and the item and told that a cleanup crew would assist him. Soon after, the man shows up in the bar to threaten Wendell, who takes out a gun to defend himself, but is easily tossed over the bar. The men hold Wendell down and proceed to torture him for the information they are seeking. Meanwhile, Ichabod and Abby are still trying to track down Jenny. She is still on the move, and was last seen in a truck stop with a big bag of guns. The duo visit one of Jenny's foster parents, where the mother tells them about a cabin at Trout Lake, where Jenny frequently used to go as a child. Later on, Ichabod and Abby arrive at the cabin, and the latter uses her key-picking skills to break in. They look around, and Ichabod realizes the cabin belonged to Corbin. Abby also realizes that Corbin was always there in Jenny's life, just as he had done for her her. Right then, Jenny comes out of hiding and points a gun at Abby. The latter points one back at her, and poor Ichabod is stuck in the middle of their feud. Eventually, Jenny tells them that the night before Corbin died, he visited her and explained to her that he felt death coming for him. Corbin had instructed her to come to the cabin and get something out of the safe. She pulls out a sextant and Ichabod recognizes it as something from his past. He explains that the Britishers had acquired a weapon that would have turned the war in their favor. Ichabod had come up with the Boston Tea Party in an attempt to get the device, but there was a Hessian soldier guarding it, and he took his own life to keep them from the weapon. Only Ichabod survived, and he went to make sure the stone box was safely passed on to General Washington. Back in the present, the trio set up the sextant as a projector, and it shows an old map of Sleepy Hollow, as well as the presumed hiding place of the stone box. Within minutes, a laser beam appears on the map, and someone begins shooting at them. It turns out to be the Hessian music teacher, who had earlier tortured and killed Wendell. He also has backup, and soon a firefight breaks out during which someone steals the sextant. Thankfully, Jenny stops a man from leaving with the rest of the loot. Once the dust settles, Ichabod checks the man and realizes he is a part of the Rheinhessen, aka the Shadow Warrior. Ichabod speaks to the man in German about the Lesser Key of Solomon, a black magic book filled with rituals to conjure up 72 demons. The Hessian also talks about the demon that Abby and Jenny saw in the woods. He tells them that his brothers now have the map and adds that the doorway will soon open. He then breaks a cyanide pill concealed in his mouth and eliminates himself on the spot. Following this, Ichabod draws a crude copy of the map they briefly saw earlier using his photographic memory. The Hessians are hunting down the Lesser Key of Solomon and are also going to the same location as Jenny, Abby, and Ichabod. Elsewhere in a desanctified church, Hessians begin the process of summoning Moloch when Abby, Jenny, and Ichabod interrupt them. A ferocious struggle ensues while the summoned demons try to get out of the molten portal which is currently spilling over onto the floor. Fortunately, when a Hessian is distracted fighting off Jenny, Abby sees an opening. She closes the Lesser Key of Solomon and throws the book into the demon pit, where it burns. The pit finally closes, which means the Hessians have failed. Want to see what happens next? Smash that like button and leave a comment. 1,500 likes, or 250 comments, and part 2 drops faster than the Horseman's axe.